All right. Well, before we get to our next match, Brett, I want to throw a little bit of a curveball at you. If eagle-eared listeners out there might detect a trend in my bets, I keep taking the better team at a goal and a half instead of just a goal because I just like the odds better. And I've got a bit of a wild theory, and I wanted to run it by you because I've got no numbers to back this up. I've got no data. This is just pure guy on the couch trying to think things through and what he's seeing and how to explain it. And that's, I guess, why they call it gambling and not investing. So of the top 6 teams that have played against, that have won against non-top 6 teams so far this year, 5 of the 6 of the score lines have ended up at least 2 goals or better. And I've been trying to think about why that might be, because a lot of times in August, you see a lot of sluggishness, right? Particularly from top sides. And so I started thinking about the summer break and the World Cup. And a lot of the times you see that sluggishness in August because the top 6 teams are just chock full of like people that are critical to their nation's team. And the summer often has a congested fixture list for national teams, no more so than when, in kind of World Cup years, right? But we're in this unprecedented period where we're going to play the World Cup in November instead of June or July, and there wasn't a European Cup or any of those things. And so are we seeing extra sharpness out of the top players in the world on the top teams because it's inversed, because they're more rested from the summer since they didn't have as high intensity national team duty, and they also have to impress the national team coach to either make the plane that's going over to Qatar or to make the starting 11 and really cover themselves in glory wearing their nation's flag. So do you think there's anything to that whatsoever, that the top teams are coming out sharper because of the change in the World Cup schedule? And that's one reason that they're not slow starting this year and actually starting with their foot on the gas.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I think, the one thing that we saw, like after we had, kind of that pandemic break, and then they came back and they finished the season and it rolled right into the next season. And then that rolled, I think, right into the Euros, and then it rolled into the next year. Like soccer traditionally doesn't have a lot of downtime. And one of the big, strategic things that's happened more is pressing, right? And so pressing can open up a game in one of 2 ways. It can either suffocate it or it can just dial up the number of possessions. And obviously, when you press and the ball gets through, you get these massive one-on-one situations. So I think a team having more rested players means they can be a little bit more aggressive in the running phase of without the ball. And that type of pressing and more aggressive system is going to lead to games that have a little bit higher variance, where you get opportunities for worse clubs to just play the one ball through, like Crystal Palace against Liverpool. It's a perfect example. Zaha gets matched up into Nat Phillips. Beautiful pass gets played through. Liverpool's up pressing. It's Phillips in 40 yards of space. Crystal Palace goal, right? And that I think is definitely, there's some legs to that. I think anytime these soccer teams get rest, it's more fun to watch. It's kind of the whole argument that's been made for the NBA is there's too many games and guys get tired and we have to rest everybody. But I definitely think this year, no international break over the summer, and having it be the first true break for a lot of these guys in 2.5, 3 years, probably.
Yeah.
It's interesting. We're definitely in weird times, I think, with that. So it's probably too early to say one way or the other conclusively, but it's definitely a narrative that I think you have a lot of credibility in stating.
Yeah, I don't know if I have any credibility ever in stating anything, but I am pressing this because, if you look at the odds and the odds that we've been talking about in these games, to take them just to win, you're paying, minus 260, minus 270, minus 280. If you're willing to push a 2-goal advantage, then you're getting way better pricing. I mean, wildly better pricing, plus on all numbers for all of these teams. And so it just is interesting to me in these high intensity, high variance games that there aren't a lot of 1-goal wins. They're either, draws or losses or 2-goal wins. And I know it's 2 weeks in. I know it's not enough data to actually draw anything conclusively, but I just started thinking about it, why. And then you add in the fact that not only did they have a little bit more rest over the summer, not only you add in the fact of the extra motivation to try to secure the best place possible on their national team, they also don't have European matches yet. So they also don't have anything.
Yeah, that's another big thing too, yeah.
So they're playing 1 game a week with rest, highly motivated, all because of the change in the World Cup. And I think throughout this year, at least probably until like February, we have to keep the World Cup in mind of how it's impacting domestic leagues specifically for gambling, because it's never been seen before. And you can throw out a lot of the other like data sets because this is new territory.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I also think too that, and this would probably be better for other podcasts on our network that do NFL stuff. But I do know that in the NFL, I think there's been this trend towards games that are not as close. It's either, close games and blowouts. And it's partially because I think the push towards like more aggressive strategical stuff, like going forward on fourth down, the increase in passing, things like that. And I think soccer with pressing can be the same
about the NFL for a second, Brett. Forget about the NFL. I mean, the NBA has been ruined by this. Like, that was one of the worst playoffs of my entire lifetime because there's so much variance created by the three-pointers now. There's almost no close games. Like, Sal famously bet 10-point margin of victory on both sides in almost every single playoff game, and it's, highly profitable for him. So this idea of increased variance across the NBA, across the NFL, hell, even in baseball with the 3 true outcomes, has really started to cut into the reason to take any money line in any sport and rather not look at the odds for, larger margins of victories that are in line with the increased variance.
Yeah, and I mean, and another thing that plays into that, this is such an interesting thread here, because another thing you can pull at is now there's 5 subs available. And we've talked before about how subs actually have a greater chance of increasing goals. So what happens when a team goes down 1 goal? They're going to sub on more attackers. So yeah, this is really interesting. My gears are definitely spinning, Toby. This is why you're the mastermind, man. Try to play the dummy here, and you're behind the scenes like fucking Kaiser Soze, trying to convince the world that you don't exist. But no, this is really interesting. I like this a lot. I think that the subs were going to impact gambling a lot with soccer. It's definitely something that's going to come up a lot when we talk about the World Cup, because there's probably going to even be more aggressive subbing there and squad rotation there. But I do think all this stuff ties in together, and we might start seeing something drift that way. And it would stand to reason that if these other sports are being pushed by strategical advantages that make games more possession-based and higher variance, that you would see more tilted scorelines as a result. So it's definitely an awesome point. Look at this dude. Look at this guy. He's trying to play as a dummy on the couch. This guy. Don't let him fool you. He's a wolf in sheep's clothing.